Father Baker, I wrote you a song. I think about you every time I do wrong. The life that you lived, well, you think that I would. Think about you every time I do good.
Hello, welcome to Pleasantville Connects to the Visual Arts. I'm Gigi Kopelak, and we have a very special show for you today. When you think about art exhibitions, I'm sure you think about museums and galleries. But the Northern Westchester Hospital has been having art exhibitions for several years. Real changing art, original art on the walls with the idea that art provides a healing environment. Today the show is going to be in two parts. First, we'll talk to the president and CEO of the hospital and the vice president of patient advocacy. And then in the second half, we'll have an artist from the Katonah Museum Artist Association, and we'll talk about the art and the association's contribution to getting this art off the ground and onto the walls. So first, please let me introduce Joel Seligman, President and CEO of Northern Westchester Hospital. Welcome, Joel.
Thank you.
And Maria Hale, Vice President of Patient Advocacy.
Welcome,
Maria. Okay, Joel, let me start with you, and because this was your vision originally, wasn't it? Yeah. And so tell me, how did it all start? Did you?
Well, yeah, I think it's been very exciting and it's evolved. But the original idea has been to simply make our hospital as patient-friendly and family-friendly and staff-friendly as possible. Everyone knows that going to a hospital is a stressful experience, often a very difficult time in people's lives. And art is one of many ways to just help people relax. And so that's been our goal in a variety of ways. But I think the art exhibits, more than anything else, have really helped us accomplish that. And again, not just for patients, but for their families and for our staff and anyone who's in the hospital. It just provides a wonderful distraction.
Right. But I think it's so interesting that because certainly you go into hospitals and you do see prints on the walls, you know, but you made an extra step here because you put, you've got changing exhibitions.
Right.
And the goal, Art for Healing, I think is terrific. And I think it works. You know, you see people being moved by these exhibitions on the walls.
Absolutely. Every day we find that as you walk down our halls. I mean, with the art where it is now, it's right in the main thoroughfares of the hospital, and sometimes in some surprising places too. And you'll find patients and family members stopping to look at the art, to talk about the art. When we change a show, it's amazing. The walls will, all the art will come down, the walls will be blank, and my telephone will immediately start to ring from surprising places. You know, our transporters will call me and say, Maria, you're putting another show. Please tell me you're putting another show. Because as we transport patients from one location to another, we stop and talk about the art. And I was so moved that it had really taken such a palpable hold in the organization.
Yeah, definitely.
I think there's a big difference between having a fixed exhibit and having something that's changing every 3 months or 6 months, because the variety is exciting to people and stimulating, and we're always out there looking at what have they found, what have they brought in. The other thing it's allowed us to do is just to connect very nicely with our community. So many of these are local artists and community artists or children of staff, or we had an exhibit of the winners of the Boys and Girls Club annual art show, and those kids got to exhibit and came over and got awards. And it's just been a beautiful way to get many other people into the hospital for a fun thing. And so they don't only associate with the hospital with, you know, someone's putting a needle in your arm.
Right,
you know?
right. I think that's really important. That's especially for children.
Yeah.
So you invite children to come in, and I'm confused about this. So you said the Boys Club. Is this an annual thing you do, or is
the
this
Boys and Girls Club had their big art contest, and we asked if the winners could exhibit at the hospital. Similarly, we had a similar session for our own staff, and particularly for their children. So the idea is, I think art is a beautiful way for people to express themselves, and it's a healthy thing. And so we're looking for ways for our staff to be able to express their own creative skills, or to just show their family a whole other side of their life. So we had a beautiful exhibit, all work that was done by children of our of our staff.
Oh, okay.
And I think everybody really enjoyed that.
Yeah. Do you plan on doing that regularly, or this is just you do?
Yeah, no, I think we'll do that once every couple of years. One exhibit was of the staff's work. Another was of the children of the staff's work, and I think that's the kind of thing we would want to repeat periodically.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. And you did something with the plane tree project or something. Would you explain that? Or
Sure.
Yeah.
Art is very much a part of our Plane Tree philosophy at the hospital. Plane Tree is a nationwide organization that is a group of hospitals that come together that are focused on patient and family-centered care. We are part of the Alliance of Plane Tree Hospitals. We're also one of 5 hospitals in the nation who have been awarded the designation of Plane Tree, which means that basically we've received the gold seal of approval in terms of the different programs that we have at the hospital that really look at patient-centered approaches to care, where art is one of those dimensions that patient-centered organizations look at, because it does create, as Joel said, that feeling of relaxation and also that sense of distraction that you need when you're in the hospital, and that's what the art gives. It also stimulates feelings of healing. So various pieces that we have throughout the hospital are in strategic locations. Like I said, one is in the main thoroughfare that is brought to us by the Katonah Museum Artist Association. And Wendy Shalin is responsible for helping to bring that art to us, where we have many different artists on display. And Wendy helps to coordinate that show and also hang that show for us. We also have other artists in the community that are in other locations of the hospital. For example, Marilyn Cohen's work is right in our IV infusion area. So, and that's beautiful work, a circus motif, watercolors, a collage of watercolors that are just so uplifting for our patients.
I
to
know
look
Marilyn's work. She has since passed away, but her work is wonderful. That's a different kind of thing, though. I don't mean to interrupt you, but the first thing you talked about, the Katonah Museum Artist Association, that's a changing show. Now this, on a floor, was it the 5th floor, I think it is this circus sequence. There's many paintings.
There's many paintings
there. And that's on sort of permanent loan or from the artist.
From the artist.
Yeah.
And
A couple other examples of similar, a permanent loan that we have from Miles Slater, who's a sculptor, a local sculptor, is a series of beautiful sculptures called The Family that are located in different locations within our Cancer Treatment and Wellness Center. And they're just beautiful combinations of family members.
So it's not one group, they're different all over.
They're in several different locations. I think there are 5 or 6 different pieces, and each is more beautiful than the next. They're also wonderful to touch. And you see,
are you allowed to touch them?
Allowed to touch them.
See, that's an art exhibition. It's great. You can touch the art.
I think guests love that. We also have, and this is a fixed piece, but outside of our neonatal intensive care unit, Dr. Min did a project. He's a sculptor, a local sculptor, in connection with the Junior League of Northern Westchester. And there's a beautiful tree of tranquility that he created that sits out on a deck right outside of our neonatal intensive care unit. And it's an area where families are often, those are families who are at the hospital for days, maybe weeks, maybe longer. So it's just a peaceful, hopeful piece that I know our families and our staff enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah. And then there are other floors.
There are other floors. We have Louis Cohen's work that is actually going on what Joel's talking about, sculpture. They're miniature sculptures that he's made out of wood and pieces of metal. And
very whimsical.
Very whimsical.
I know his work also. Yeah.
And he actually put them in boxes and showed display boxes for us, and we made a whole wall of display right outside our intensive care unit.
Oh, okay, that's great.
And provides such a sense of comfort and enjoyment to our families that are there for quite some time and need that sense of distraction. We also have Kim Tamalonis's work that's on permanent display. Kim was one of our first artists that set us on our path, and Kim provided us with her piece called The One That Got Away. And she wanted to give this piece to the hospital because it really represented innovation and kind of breaking away from life's conventions. And she saw the hospital's movement towards the Plane Tree Initiative really that way, really setting the stage towards patient and family-centered care. And she wanted her art to be representative of that. So that's right on our main floor as well.
Mm-hmm.
Back to changing galleries, and also in the Cancer Treatment and Wellness Center, the Westchester Photographic Society has taken responsibility for part of our cancer center and brings us a changing display.
Oh, that's another changing exhibition.
And they're magnificent photographs, all local photographers, and beautiful.
Right. And it's so amazing to me that you sent out the call and all of these artists responded. I mean, it's just wonderful. And this is local artists now, mostly. You didn't. Yeah, you didn't have to go far.
There's so much talent.
There's so much talent.
Locally that we don't need to go far.
It's true. That's really true.
But the variety is wonderful also.
Yeah, definitely. The diversity
really
is fabulous.
That.
But, and what was the story about the interactive piece? What happened with that?
Yes, Joyce Wenglowski, who again was one of the early pioneers with us in this project, she really wanted to take art to another dimension at the hospital and really create a way for patients and families and staff to have a way to interact with the art and to really have it be a live piece. So she created this beautiful acrylic piece in the Cancer Center that has these birds of hope, and you actually have the ability to glue the birds onto her piece in a way to bring hope and create well wishes. And you can write on the back of the bird whatever wish you would like to give to either yourself or to someone else, and mount that bird on this beautiful landscape. And so that has just taken off in our Cancer Center, and now she's moved on to another interactive piece for the Cancer Center as well.
Yeah.
It's amazing how one thing like that just took off, and the patients and the staff really enjoyed having that available to them.
Right, yeah. So they just keep adding these birds and onto this piece, and then and you don't take them off. You just leave them there.
They just come off, and patients and families and staff can put the birds on however they like, and it becomes their piece. It comes to life.
Right, yeah. This is fabulous. And I guess the patients, you must have incredible stories to tell of things that have happened, though, you know, like people responding to it in some way.
Absolutely. We had one patient who was with us for quite some time, and her daughter was visiting on a regular basis, and one of the pieces that our artist had on the 6th floor, who had given her art to be on display there, she would look every day at that piece of art, and it gave her the strength to continue to be in her role as a caregiver. And she didn't realize how much strength it gave. And she's next to all our pieces is an artist statement, and it tells about the artist and their motivation for the piece. And she actually was able to meet the artist at a nearby restaurant, and she went up to the artist and she told her how every day her piece actually gave her inner peace, and she thanked her for sharing her work with the hospital. We have stories like that every day.
That's incredible.
They're just absolutely magnificent what the art does.
Yeah. So what is it that actually happened? You came into the hospital one day and you saw bare walls, and you said, because that was a brave thing to do, to say, I'm going to open this up to the public and I'm going to let people. I mean, that's a lot of artists. You know, we can be crazy sometimes. You know, like. But
no, I think people just enjoy seeing and experiencing new things. And the walls weren't bare, but they had been the way they had been for some time, and we have so many different creative arts around.
Yeah.
And again, I think this was more really a part of us questioning in general the emotional and the spiritual side of receiving health care. So to just take a step back for a minute, it's in many ways it's the most visible, because it's a visual art.
Right.
So it's a wonderful cue to all of us, patients, families, and staff alike, that we're concerned about the patient's experience, the family's experience, their peace of mind, their well-being, beside the cancer that we're there treating or the surgery that we're waiting for mom to come out of the operating room with.
Right.
So I think one of the really wonderful things about the impact it's had on the hospital is that wherever you look, something's reminding you that we care about the mind and the spirit and the soul while we're caring for for the body and the illness.
Right.
So I think it's helped to set that tone, but it's
Yeah.
part of when you put it together with music and pets and.
Oh, wait, now you're introducing something
all these
new.
other
All right, tell me
things.
about the music and the pets.
Different shows, we'll come back for that.
No, tell me about the music and the pets.
No, again, and I can let Maria speak to much of this, but things that patients and families find joy in,
right,
or find peace in, at a time when stress is such an important problem,
definitely,
are therapeutic in their own way. It doesn't cure the cancer, but it makes the treatment more tolerable and maybe in some way even more effective. We don't know. We don't promote that. We don't know
but
that.
there is that theory.
But that's possible. But it certainly makes the experience of getting the care a more pleasant one. And we literally get get letters from patients who've been treated in our cancer center saying, in a way, I'm kind of sorry that my treatment's over.
Oh, really?
That they came to enjoy the integrative therapies, whether it's Reiki or massage or acupuncture that we often provide as part of a cancer treatment. But it's part of the environment of care, and it really is what Plane Tree is all about. Mm-hmm. It's about creating a patient-centered environment of care where, yes, technically you've got to do the right things. The medicine's got to be exactly right. The surgeon has to be highly competent. All those things are critical, but the patient may not even know the difference with those things. What you know is whether this is an environment where I was cared for as a human being by other human beings. Mm-hmm. And so I know music and pets are just another way to accomplish that same thing. The art certainly has been
mm-hmm.
effective.
Yeah, it's like a subtle thing. You don't realize it's happening, but you know this is different than any other place that I've been to.
You walk in and see a beautiful work of art instead of a warning sign,
mm-hmm.
and
a warning sign.
and instead of becoming tense.
This
can't be such a bad place.
Yeah, or just the idea that it's original art. To me, even walking into someone's home and you see the difference whether mm-hmm. it was nothing wrong with prints, anybody, but you know, I think there's a difference between an original piece of art and yeah. But
Absolutely.
you still haven't said about the pets. Can I know about the pets here?
Well, the pets, we have dog therapy at the hospital.
Not for dogs.
Not for dogs. Dog therapy for people.
Okay.
And that started as well as we're looking at ways to demystify the environment and really to create an environment that's warm and healing and nurturing and less frightening and less scary.
Yeah.
So the dogs actually come and visit with patients, both in an outpatient setting and an inpatient setting.
Not their dogs, not the patient's dogs.
No. We have dogs that go through a special training and with their handlers, with their owners, and then they come to the hospital and we pair them up with an experienced team, dog owner and patient, and they go in and visit the patients in the room and just give them what we call a dose of dog. You know,
a dose of dog?
A dose of dog.
A dose of dog, okay.
So,
a dog dose.
And it's not only beneficial for the patients and for the families, but for the staff.
Yeah. Oh, really?
They just love it when the dogs come to visit, just like they love the art and they love the music and all those surprises that you don't expect to get in a hospital setting.
Yeah.
And with the art, too, it was it shows how it's kind of become part of our culture. The Wellness Committee was looking for a way that we could promote the use of our stairwells and again, using the stairwells for exercise. And the Wellness Committee came to me and said, you know, do you know of any artists that you think would be interested in trying to make the stairwell be a place that would invoke using it more? So we had an artist that came in and actually created these images on every stairwell that are beautiful landscapes, images. So when you walk up the first floor, you're in a forest, and the next floor you're in a beautiful butterfly garden, and you work all the way up to the top and you're reaching the moon and the stars all the way on the seventh floor.
Great.
So it's a beautiful array of landscapes that painted right on the wall. And it really has created an environment where you want to use the stairs.
Instead of using the elevator.
Instead of using the elevator,
yeah.
right.
So, and what is a wellness committee? May I ask that?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a group of employees at the hospital that are multidisciplinary that come together to discuss ways that the hospital can promote wellness amongst the staff, and one way was to...
For the staff now, not
Staff.
this
The
is for the
staff.
staff, not the staff. The staff.
So they look at different things from nutrition to exercise to integrative approaches that could be offered to the staff that would decrease stress. So their gamut is all focused on better wellness for,
I'm
for
very
the
impressed.
professional caregivers.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. So is this the Plaintree ideal that you think about the staff and the patients
Yes.
and the
I think it's
Absolutely.
very much central to the Plaintree idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and were you involved in creating the Plaintree, or
No.
is it just you?
There are now, I think, about 150 hospitals around the world that are Plaintree participants. There are only,
Okay.
again, these 5 that are designated so far as meeting all the standards, and we're one of those. But
Only 5?
yes,
And you are one of
that
5?
are designated. But there will be others, and it's a wonderful thing because
Yeah.
it's just...
Is it new? Is it something new?
The
or-
designation status is about a year old now, yeah.
Okay.
So it's a nice
So
thing.
you're one of the first ones to get
Yeah,
on that.
yeah. The other
That's
thing I
pretty incredible.
want to just
Yeah.
emphasize for a second, we talk about, and Plaintree, in fact, talks about patient-centered care. So empowering the patient, trying to be responsive to those needs that the patient can express. But it's almost as important to be family-centered. And families with sick family members face many challenges. It's tough to be the loved one of
Sometimes harder.
someone who's got
Yeah.
long-term disease, chronic illness, maybe terminal illness, a young person, an old person. These are all very difficult situations for family members. In some cases, they are the caregiver at home. And so we have created a special program that's known as the Ken Hamilton Caregivers Support Program. And then we have a facility for those family members right off our lobby that we refer to as an oasis. That is just a wonderful relaxation center for family members who are with patients who are staying with us for an extended period. And there's some wonderful art in the Ken Hamilton Caregiver Center as well. But the point I wanted to make is that sometimes it's just an awkward thing to be the family member in a hospital. What do I say? And so sometimes it's the little thing. I like the expression, the little things are the big things. Well, walking down the hall with your elderly, sick family member and seeing a work of art that you can stop and talk about for a minute, or having someone bring an adorable dog into that room for 2 minutes that you can both enjoy together being the key word there, I think is really an important little subtle thing that a lot of these initiatives are intended to try and make it easier for the family member to be a part of, to be a family in our hospital, not to feel like you wait here.
Right.
Yeah, so for example, we have no visiting hours at the hospital. It's open visitation anytime, and that's along the same philosophy of this is your loved one, who will either tell you when you can visit, that kind of thing. But we look for ways to make it more family-centered as well, and it's a challenge.
Yeah.
But some of these initiatives help us in that regard.
Yeah, no, I think that's incredible because I know I was volunteering at a hospital and there were hours, and to be able to go at any time is wonderful.
Yeah, people rushing after work because they want to get there for the last minute.
But yeah, what's that
Why?
about?
Yeah.
And so you're really thinking about all of this. It's amazing. I'm very impressed. I don't know what else to say. Yeah, so I think, you know, the art on the walls is just one small part of everything that you guys are doing. And it's a big part, because obviously this is an art show, and I'm interested in the art, and I'd love to go there and see it. And you give wonderful receptions also. You have good food at your hospital. Yeah.
You want to celebrate.
You want to say, yeah.
Our artist receptions are a way of, just a small way of us thanking our artists in the community for giving of themselves with the hospital. I mean, their pieces are really their beautiful creations, and they're sharing them with the staff and the patients and the families of our institution, and we're really indebted to them for doing that. So we have these receptions, and it's a wonderful way for us to get to know the artists and to really appreciate their work, because they all stand by their pieces as the public comes in and looks at the show, and they spend time talking and answering questions, and it's really just invaluable what they do for everyone who comes to the shows.
right.
And you can come. We have the show is designed to be a guided tour. So we have maps at the visitor's desk.
Oh, I didn't know this.
So if you'd like to walk through on, at your own pace and take a look at the tour, we have maps that outline where all the artists are, and next to each piece is an artist statement, and you can read at your leisure and find out about that artist.
You can also buy the art. Yes.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
The art is for sale, yes.
Yeah, so it's a real art exhibition in a wonderful healing environment that it's terrific. Yeah.
It is, yes.
Yeah, so we're ready for our second half of the show.
Excellent.
And is there anything else that you think we haven't covered that you'd like to say? Covered the animals and the art and the music. Did we talk about the music?
We have music play that happens at the hospital. That's, again, just another little surprise. On Wednesdays, we have professional musicians, actually, that come in. We have a pianist and a classical guitarist and a harpist that plays in our lobby and for the public and for patients and families and staff. We also have an afternoon tea that happens at that time. And some of these musicians actually go upstairs and play on the floors as well. And we also have a group of volunteers who come in and play on the patient floors. Due to the generosity of our community, we've had some pianos that have been donated, so we're able to put the pianos in the solariums upstairs on the floors, as well as in our lobby, and the musicians rotate through playing live music on the floors.
It's incredible. I don't want to get sick, but geez, if
keep away, but if you need to be in a hospital.
If you need to be in a hospital,
right.
this is a wonderful hospital to go to. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure.
And we thank all the people in the community who make this happen, because it's a great collaboration.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
As promised, the second half of the show is going to be interviewing with an artist from the Katonah Museum Artist Association, my good friend, Wendy Shalin. Welcome, Wendy. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to see you, be here.
I think the first thing we'll do, because this half is about the art and the association's contribution to the hospital about the art, we'll look at 3 images first.
Okay.
And we'll do this throughout. We'll have a little conversation, then we'll look at some images. So let's start with a Pleasantville artist, Karen Ann Sullivan. And she's a photographer. Actually, I have interviewed Karen here before. And so I know that she travels around a lot. This particular image is called Buff Banded Rail, and it's from Fiji. And it's a great composition. She's got the bird on one side looking over. It's almost as if he planned it that way, a bird strutting, you know, looking on the side. And so that's the first one.
Like you come into his environment where he's
living. Very good. Yeah, that's terrific. And then the second one is, I love her work, Margaret Fox.
Margaret Fox. Yeah, she's great.
She's got a sense of humor.
Right, very much so. She is actually a commercial photographer as well.
Hours, yeah.
And a commercial and fine art photographer. She did a whole series called Escape from Thanksgiving Day Parade.
I remember that, where the balloons are going over the landscape.
Yeah, now this one is called Rock and Rolls, and it is very funny to see that whole, it's I guess a sort of takeoff on Ansel Adams' traditional photography.
Right, but there's the rolls, real rolls in there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So she's trying just to bring some humor to serious photography.
Right. Yeah.
And turn it upside down a little.
And then the third image is Bernie Kessler. Yeah.
This particular one shows, I think he photographed it, it's called Herring Cove. It's from Provincetown, Mass. I guess Herring Cove is right near Provincetown, Mass, or, by Cape Cod. And he's a traditional nature photographer.
Right. I like this one though, because it looks like those footprints are walking off into the sand, into the water, and it's sort of like what's happening is, you know.
Or you're walking into the picture that way.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. You see it a different way than I do.
So you walk through and then out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
I think
terrific.
That's done well.
Yeah. So that's just 3 of the images that have been in the show at the hospital.
Right.
That's just the 3 photos. We've had other photographers at the hospital, you know, you and I are both in the Katonah Museum Artist Association, and so we'll talk about the association later.
Okay.
And now that we've had this little aperitif of photographs, tell me, how did you get this job? Because I know that you were great at it, and I know anybody asks you to do something, it's going to be a good job. No, it's
hopefully.
true. It's true. So
Well, I was on the advisory board when, I guess it was in March, or actually it was in December of 2002, and right after Joel Seligman came to the hospital. And he came with Maria. And so both of them, and specifically Joel, was very interested in wanting to make art, to bring art to the hospital and turn the hospital into a place which was very nurturing, as you've just seen.
yeah.
So Maria was sort of asked to find artists, and I think it was someone like, her name is Kim Tamalonis was the first person, and she actually eventually donated the piece that's at the entrance by the elevators. But it was a giant job for her. It was Kim, actually. It's Kim Tamalonis. And it was also a giant job for Maria to sort of coordinate all of these individual artists. So there was a board member at the Northern Westchester Hospital who I believe was also affiliated with the Katonah Museum. And she suggested that perhaps the Katonah Museum could work with the hospital and bring in artists. So then what ended up happening was Joyce Wenglowski, who was president of the Katonah Museum Artist Association, had a meeting with Maria in December of 2002. They walked through the hall space and realized there was about 401 running feet of space to hang artwork on. Joyce organized a terrific presentation, presented it to the advisory board of the Artists Association, which we'll talk about in a second, and I was on the advisory board. We ended up, three of us, Colette Lako, who had originally was put sort of in charge of the show, and Bob Capellas and myself decided, well, we went to the artist registry at the museum to jury work for a show that was going to be the first of, it turns out to be many, shows there.
So you had no idea in the beginning that this was going to last this long. This has been going on. What did you say?
It's since 2003. The first show was March 2003.
Right.
We had 14 artists. Each artist shows at, actually there were 14 artists, and each artist can show about 4 pieces each. So in the
they get about 4 feet or so. Each artist gets about 4 feet or so. You know. So it could be. Oh no, not really, because you could have one really big.
The maximum space per piece has to be 4 feet. So there's a you can have a long hall.
You could have 4,
space.
Right? Okay.
But essentially,
so they could be great big pieces, and they could be small pieces.
Right.
And, right. Okay.
We've shown 124 artists in the last 5 years. We're going on our 13th show, and that makes at approximately 4 pieces per artist, and some artists have repeated work.
Right.
We've shown 1,025 or so pieces.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
To what I
have seen.
Yeah. It's kind of amazing.
It's kind of amazing.
It's been. Initially you said, did I sort of pre-visualize the situation? I kind of had a sense that some people were thinking it would be a group show. You'd have 15 different pieces from 15 different artists, and so right away I could sort of know that was going to be kind of a nightmare to have to organize. So initially said, I think we should just have 15 artists, maybe 20 artists max, and have a number of pieces per artist, so that artist has a wall space with its own integrity and a little gallery space for that person. And it went from there, really.
Yeah, it is. It's continued all along. And you mentioned something. You mentioned jurying or looking at the slides. I think, as we discuss the Katonah Museum Artist Association, or as we discuss today, we'll find out all the different things that are part of this association. But one of the things is a slide file that the artists in the association can leave up at the museum, at the Katonah Museum, and this is what you use.
Well, actually, initially, in 2003, it was a slide file. Now, actually, it's a photo file. It was a slide registry that designers used, and now, and in fact, this is we'll talk about how you become a member of the museum or as an art association member. This is one of the ways to become an art association member. But what we use to jury this show is I go and there's a jury of 3 people who are on the advisory board for the most part, and sometimes not actually, but they're artists, members of the Art Association. And we go to the slide, or what was the slide file, to the photo file, and pull work from there. So that is when you become a member of the museum, and you are expected to send, I think it's up to 4 5x7 photographs and a bio, and that.
Yeah, because nobody's using slides anymore. There's no such thing as
right.
projector anymore. Where everything is either digital, so you look at the CDs or you look at the images, but that doesn't mean that that's what's in the show. No. Basically, what you're doing is looking at the work of an artist.
Right.
And then inviting that artist to be part of this hospital show.
Right.
Yeah. So let's look at a little more work.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. This next one is great for our show because it's Chris McAdeeny's painting of Wheeler Avenue.
Right.
I mean, we turn that little corner and there's Pleasantville TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Chris actually is a really good friend of mine. He's a plein air painter. You've come and painted with him as well, and he draws from life, or paints from life, whether it's a landscape or it's a figure, and it does it incredibly quickly, incredibly simply, with maybe 3 colors in oil, and really well. And I've seen him in a situation where he's worked from the figure and a model, and he's not been satisfied. He wipes it out in 30 seconds. It's this beautiful painting, wipes it out, starts all over again. You think, oh, I wish I could.
Yeah, and this one has beautiful light, and I know that he does create beautiful light. Yeah, and then the next painting. This is here. So we saw the photographs, and these are all oil paintings that we're seeing now, right?
Right. Now, Sherry Cammie, also a friend, has painted beautiful series. She just had a wonderful show at Ward Poundridge Reservation, and this was one of the pieces in the show. It's a painting of America the Beautiful, the flag, and just shows a lot of wind in air and a big blue sky, real simple. It's 48 by 60.
Yeah, this is a big painting. Chris's was a little painting, but this one is a really big painting.
And she's a figure painter, and as well as a drawer. Wrote a book on graphite drawing, and teaches at the Art Students League.
As do you. We should mention that Wendy teaches at the Art Student League also.
Right.
Yeah, that's terrific. And so we're going from small. Chris was small, and Sherry's is sort of medium compared to this one. This last one,
Jerome Kretschner, and this is a very large triptych. Jerome has been a lawyer, a legislator, a city official, a builder, a restaurateur. He paints with a window washer's squeegee and does really a kind of almost Hans Hofmann approach to pushing and pulling color fields and the space.
With a lot of energy. He works with a lot of energy.
Interest.
That's what he's trying to convey with the energy, right. But when you say, first of all, triptych means three paintings.
Right, and they're very large.
That go together. It really is to be shown together. Like Roman, or what am I trying to say? And you go to the churches and there are 3 images.
Right.
Fidelis. You're so smart.
The wonderful part actually about these paintings and then the photography is the concept that, and also the whole show, as far as my perspective goes, is the sense that we have an ability here to show a variety of work. First of all, the Art Association has work from all different types and styles of work, and now you have 400 feet of space, which consistently, from my perspective, has broken down into different small galleries. So it's a little bit like a satellite gallery of the Art Association artists' work. So we've got, when you first walk in, areas where you can walk up really close and see botanical drawings or paintings or representational pastels, landscapes. Chris's work would fall in there. Then there's a long hall in the hospital right around the corner from there where one can show really large abstract paintings and some low relief work. And then the photographs, there's a sort of small gallery space for photography as well. Even though it's one long hall, for some reason when the work comes in, I sense that it very nicely will fit into categories, into various sort of small galleries within the larger framework of the whole space.
Well, I know you execute the hanging. You don't actually physically hang it, but
Right.
you design it, and you do a fabulous job.
Thank
Yeah, it always looks terrific the way you do, because you're getting such diverse work.
Right.
You can see this from what we're looking at, and yet you manage to do it. And the hospital staff must play a
Right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well, one could not do anything without Ellen Mutner. No, she's Director of Volunteers right now. It's between Ellen's volunteers and my eyes, essentially, and some energy, and all of the artists' work. It's become sort of a well-oiled machine. I mean, it's one of those things which runs really smoothly. We organize it, the work comes down one afternoon, the next morning the walls are painted, and she organizes that, gets that scheduled in advance by 6 months in advance. That afternoon work comes in. I stay on, we put the work up. I actually organize it right then as to what locations, what sort of small gallery spaces that work's going to go into. And then the next day it's hung by this wonderful guy, Chris, at the hospital, who is just a total professional at this point and does a superb job.
Right.
And I'm really picky, which you know, so it has to be hung on one eye line.
Well, but I think that's great. That's a great thing. I mean, like I said, you want to get a job well done, you know, pick somebody who knows what they're doing and is willing to say, no, take that nail down and move it.
Yeah.
And then next to what's great is, so there are 4 pieces, and
Right.
then you've got the statements
Right.
from the artist,
Right.
and then the price.
Right. Okay. So
What's it?
Ellen has this superb woman, Attaby Combs, who works with her as a volunteer, and Attaby essentially coordinates she receives from artists via email all of their artist statements and bios, and then that goes. She formats it. That sends it off to the printer, who then is now doing sort of a official printing of the labels and the artist statements. And so it has a clean look. And my goal is that it just really does look very professionally hung,
Right.
like a gallery space.
Right, and it does. And let's look at some more. Let's look at, I mean, we're really diverse here. So let's go to Bob Capellas's work. This is an abstract acrylic. Bob is also, well, all of these people are members of the Katonah Museum Artist Association.
Right.
You have to be a member in order to be in this show. And Bob has been one of the original members.
Right. He was an artist member when it was the Katonah Gallery.
Right, in the library.
Right.
Before it went into the museum. Right.
As was
Yeah,
I,
so-
actually.
Yeah, right, okay.
And then he became one of the beginning people on the advisory board.
Right. And his work is very colorful. Really.
Colorful. He's quite a character. He
is.
was an NYU professor for many years. He wrote 2 great drawing books. He essentially wants his paintings to surprise us and have us essentially go wow when we
Which
look
you
at
do,
them.
which you
Which
do.
you really
Yeah.
you do.
He just had a fabulous retrospective at
the Flynn Gallery in Greenwich.
In Greenwich, and but he had once told me that his work is based on landscape. But you know, I guess you can.
And a woman and women.
And women.
And his response to women, or vice versa.
And the next one, Tina. This is unusual for Tina because she does a lot of sculpture, doesn't she? Like wall pieces.
There's some glass mosaic pieces, but I'm not familiar with the 3-dimensional sculpture.
Oh, okay, not 3-dimensional.
At one point she did some sort of simulated mosaic / stained glass, but it's really
Okay.
mosaic.
Right,
It's always been very optical, and
Right.
she was a biology major in college, and so some of the work, she's almost a scientist in the way she approaches what she's doing.
Right.
This is it's called Primary Reflections. It's an acrylic painting, 48 by 48. And she says that she was inspired by autumn leaves floating on a pond at the Ward Pound Ridge Reservation in Pound Ridge. She says, although I was working with red, yellow, and blue at the time, I tried to capture the depth created by the leaves, water, and light. It expresses her love of color, nature, and design. And the principal focus is on the optical qualities of color.
Right. So it really is not a landscape of the leaves, but the color and how it represents it. Right. And the next, and so again, more diverse. Then you have Anne
Moss.
Yeah.
And
this is stained glass.
Right.
Yeah.
She's a stained glass artist. She created these. They're 4 pieces that are each 5 by 7. They're not meant to be seen in a window situation. They're meant to be, they're created for the wall. And so no light comes through them, but in fact they're created with a type of glass that changes color as you move past it. It's called dichroic. Dichroic glass, which
That's like
means
an art speak.
something that appears to change color, and it's described.
But as long as it works,
Right.
hey, that's the most important thing. And then the 4th one that we have in this series is Arlie Sklar Weinstein.
Right.
And this is called Grecian I can't say that.
Grecian Lessons, Ancient Market Wall
in Athens. Yeah, and I love her work because she's combining a 21st century medium, a method, which is digital photography.
Right.
And then she puts it on fabric, and then she quilts it. So you've got this antique way of working,
Right.
with this very contemporary way of working. And then, to create movement, she adds another piece of fabric, like a piece of organza or
Right.
something over it, so it flutters a little bit, so you have this feeling of movement.
Right. Have you seen the backs of the pieces? The back, she chooses the most spectacular fabric. So the backs of all those pieces under the quilting, behind at the base layer, is just gorgeous. It's fabulous.
So you could hang it in the
color.
middle of the room and look on both sides of it.
Yeah, right. You could do that.
Yeah. So, tell me, do you sometimes have stories? Do you have a story of like somebody? Like I know there was one time that I was with you, helping you, and there's an office along the hall.
Right.
And the woman came out because I think the first time we had put a pig, it was a great painting. It was a pig painting.
Right.
And then the second time we gave her a rooster. Or something, was it? Is that what it was? And then, and so she came out and she said, "Are you trying to tell me something?"
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to please everybody, but in this case.
No, but she wasn't displeased.
No, right.
No, she wasn't. She was joking. And I think everybody has a great sense of humor, and they're really terrific.
Right.
I mean, you know.
Well, for one thing, as Maria said, when the art is up there, it's up there for 6 months. So people hope, the people who are working there, they're hoping that, I would assume that they're going to love something that is right near their office, because they pass by it so often. You know, I try to complement the work, and again, because there are sort of mini galleries within the larger space, there's a certain flow I'm trying to you know, have effect, and sometimes that works, and sometimes most of the time it works. There have been situations where you know, people haven't been pleased with some work that's there.
Well, there are criteria.
Right.
Let's say that. I mean, you're not going to put something really pushing the envelope, let's say, that you would see in Chelsea, or something that's too risque.
Right.
You know, it's a hospital, and as Joel said, he wants to create peace and spirituality, and so that's sort of important.
Well,
yeah.
When I send a letter to people asking them if they're interested in the show, I do explain and actually quote Maria's initial request, which was not to have uplifting work, essentially, and work that is not political, not too controversial, no nudes. We want to please as many people as possible and make them really forget about the pain that they're experiencing. And I mean, that's the main goal for the situation. And rather than create a controversial annoyance, essentially, that people don't really want to have to look at.
Right.
But so there have been those situations where every once in a while, we've changed work.
Right. Right.
And we just and people,
and
the artists
understand.
understand.
Right.
Everybody understands.
Everybody understands. Yeah. All right. Let's do a couple more images, and then we'll talk about the Artist Association.
Great.
So the next 3 are sort of sculptures. There's Sandra Gold. Yeah. She uses triangle pieces. What are these? Are they steel, or are they?
They are.
They're not wood.
They're painted steel.
Okay.
This one's called Triangles 12, and these are low relief pieces because it's very hard, and we can talk about that in a minute, but it's very hard to display sculpture through these walls, essentially because of the gurneys, so we can't have that.
Can't have
freestanding sculpture. So these are low relief sculptures. Her work, she works with triangles in most cases. Sometimes they're painted, in this case white, painted steel. There are pieces that are up there now. There's a blue one, a red one. They're kind of small. They're maybe 12 by 12, but very much sort of a combination of if you would imagine a steel paper, folded paper airplane.
Oh, like
bird.
origami or something.
Yeah, I mean, and imagine them doing that in steel. And essentially, there's that kind of feeling. And they kind of, even though they're heavy steel, and when they're attached to the wall, they sort of float. They feel.
But explain
that
low relief, because these look deep.
Right, as in you don't really want to come out from the wall more than maybe 4 or 5 inches.
Okay. Right.
And that's the kind of work that's about it as far as that one can have hanging because of the gurneys.
Yeah, like the next one is Barbara Corman, and this is a cast bronze. It's called the Waterscape series, the Salt March, and she actually uses the marsh reeds to cast from. Right, and so that's what these images are. So they were also very low relief. Right. And then she frames them. Yeah, she frames them in wood. This is just one of a series that she's done, because certainly she just had a show at Ward Pound also, and she had some different work there also. Yeah. And the next person, Sally Aldridge.
Yeah. Now Sally is a great supporter of the Katonah. She's a great person, but she's also been on the advisory board for a long time. And
she writes the newsletter.
She writes the newsletter, and she was president for a while. And she is both a potter as well as a watercolor painter. And she teaches classes through Richfield community through their education department. Adult ed class, actually, in watercolor.
But her watercolors are so different than her clay pieces.
Well, the clay pieces, this is a little much obviously more constructed. You have to kind of pre-visualize it and really make everything work and hold together, and it's not as spontaneous and free-flowing. The watercolor work is just, they're very large watercolor pieces, bright colors, and very spontaneous in the way she approaches them.
Yeah. But she says about this, she's stripping away the non-essentials and looking for the essence of a piece when she,
Right, and whether she's working for, she says, a nautilus shell, a sunflower, or an animal.
Right, she's always looking at. All right, let's do the Katonah Museum Artist Association now. So we are a group of artists. I think we have 250 members. Right. But obviously only about 124 show their work, because we really don't, it's not everybody that, well, we have a wide range, wouldn't you say? Very professional to people who are still studying, but in order to become a member, you join the museum, and you send 4 5x7 images of your work and a brief 1-page resume. That's the new procedure. And essentially, if you're interested either in showing in this situation, in this show at the hospital, you should join the museum and send those images. But I would go to the Katonah Museum the Katonah Museum of Art's website to get the specifics on that. Which is katonahmuseum.org. Right. Okay. And get the information. And it's a great organization that is, as Gigi said, composed of, you said 250 to 300 artists, I think. There are this group of artists meets in the city together often to look at galleries, to go to museums. There are presentations at the museum of famous artists. There are opportunities to exhibit, jury shows, to send work into, and we try with a lot of effort to find galleries and find space to and great jurors to look at work, jury work. Yeah, there's a show coming up in a couple of months, I think. Right. They're going to have a juror and. Well, it's at David Boyagin's in New Fairfield, Connecticut. He's a sculptor and he's a sculpture studio there, and so David Boyagian and Vince Baldessano will be jurying that show. I believe it's like
I think it's a September 1st
Okay.
deadline.
Yeah. So you send in your
Just
images and they jury
yeah.
it, and then if you're accepted, you'll be in the show.
Right, and there's
That's
you can go online to get the prospectus
it. Oh, okay. That's good.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
online
So-
for the museum to get the prospectus.
Right. Right. Okay, let's do our last 4 images. First one is Michelle Gage, and this is a watercolor. She has, I think, 165 grids in her. Yeah.
So
Yes,
Michelle
please.
lives in an impeccably gorgeous white studio out in the woods in Pound Ridge.
Well, she doesn't live in the studio, but
She
she
doesn't live in
has.
the studio, but
she
she
has
has
a
the studio. I walked into her studio and I decided I had to go home and clean my studio. And she paints one painting. There's one painting on the table at a time, and there's 2 paintings on the wall. It's a little bit like your studio, really organized and clean. And
Well, yours is huge.
but
so
not
you-
organized and clean. In any case, so because she's very precise and only can accomplish something in a short amount of time, she decided to paint small grids, and so she would develop multiple paintings.
Right.
And so in this case, it's 165 small abstract paintings on a grid. And if you get up close, you see them. It looks like an abstract painting.
Right.
You cannot see them. There's really no.
Well, it looks like a landscape actually from far away, but then when you get up close, you see all the different grids. Yeah,
Right, and
it's pretty
her
pretty.
concept basically is that you don't want to focus on one, there's no one focal point. It's a sense of walking to a landscape where you see multiple focal points, kind of a mosaic
Right.
of color.
If
And
your eye is constantly moving around.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Carol Benasato, that's another drawing.
right, that
She works from a model.
works
Yeah.
from a model, and this is a charcoal and pastel large figure drawing.
Yeah.
And she says that her style of drawing reveals an incisive portrait as she probes the model's personality. It's just, they're very fun and wonderfully, they're humorous. There's a whole living spirit she always manages intuitively to capture in the work.
Okay, and the next is
they're
a very
large,
yeah.
gigantic.
I'm dying to get to the next one because it's Wendy Shalin's. And it really, people get a sense of how talented you really are. This is a beautiful, beautiful portrait.
Thank you.
And you teach, what do you teach? Figure work at the Art Students League.
Correct.
Yeah,
I teach
yeah.
figure drawing and portfolio development to both, well, to high school kids, the portfolio development, and some older people trying to get to transfer, to go to design schools. I also teach figure drawing and painting, watercolor painting. But this is a watercolor of a friend who's a medieval illuminator, and she's kind of an elegant soul. So that's really what I was after, trying to capture her elegance more than anything, and put her in front of a kiln. And it's Patricia.
Yeah,
And,
no, I
and
know it's Patricia.
trying to just look, just try to capture that elegance
Well,
in
it's
a simple way.
beautifully done, and watercolor is so difficult. You really have to be disciplined to do watercolor. I'm sorry, but I have to say that. I'm more of a kindergartner myself. I'm smushing around on this.
There's a smushing technique in watercolor as well.
Is there? But somehow you have to get
We'll
to that
talk.
discipline part. I'm sorry. And our last image, I'm sorry, this is all we have. I mean, out of, what did we say, 124 artists?
Right.
We've only picked...
Actually, 1,024 artists that of
No,
work
1,024
shown.
pieces
that we've shown.
But out of 124 artists, we've only chosen, I'm sorry to say, 17 artists to show because we just don't have the time to show it all. But this last piece is another Pleasantville artist, Fran Sirocco. And this is her cat, I know, because I know Fran. She's also a good friend of mine. And so it's called Fur and Feather. And she's a great drafts person. She really knows. She draws, and this is colored pencil.
It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
she does. It's beautiful, isn't it? And people, I think someone once made a mistake and said, "Is that a photograph?" Because she's very detailed, also.
That's in the
Yeah.
front at the beginning of the exhibition. And I
Okay.
think that brings a lot of, I hope that brings a lot of solace to the people who are experiencing some pain in having to be at the hospital. And so
Right.
that's an example of what we're really trying
Well,
to do.
it goes with the pets and the
Right.
people who love animals would see that.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
It's been just it's a kind of amazing partnership to have the museum, the Artist Association, and Ellen and the hospital, offer this amount of space for all of these artists. I think on both sides, everybody's really pleased by what, and really appreciates, the artists appreciate having their work shown and sort of doing a good thing for the community. And I know, because I hear from Ellen, from all of the people from staff as well, that it's appreciated by the hospital staff.
No, I think it's a fabulous thing. I think it's a fabulous thing that you do. I don't know that you realized when you signed on that it was going to be you were going to be still going at it.
No, it's a good thing.
No, but so many years later that it would keep going. No, it's great. Thank you so much for coming.
Welcome.
This has been such a pleasure to have you here. I've loved it. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching.